My garage is a disaster. Definitely not suitable right now for working on computers. Got a lot of sawdust and tile dust. Doing some remodeling in the house, so garage is out of commission, and now I guess I gotta work inside the house, which is okay because it's kind of cold today, but I don't have the space like I'm normally accustomed to. Plus I have all my extra hardware, tools, and all that stuff, so but we gotta adapt. But on the plus side, the kitchen is kind of looking nice. We're doing the whole remodel thing, so yeah, hopefully we should get this finished soon and I could get the garage back up and get back to working in there. Kind of miss the old garage. But for now, this is gonna be the studio, so you'll probably see a couple of videos in here, and yeah, all the stuff that was in the kitchen is in here. But got a little workspace for the computer, so let's get started and talk about what we're going to be doing today. Alright, so I should have everything I need in this temporary setup to kind of finish up this build. So first off, let's start with what we have. So this is a computer. Customer reached out to me and says, hey, want you to build me high-end PC. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Biggest thing was no RGB. Went with the 4090 Lian Li O11 Dynamic 13900K. I should have a separate video on this being built and finished, just depending on how these videos line up, so bear with me on that. Well, during the process of this, I will say I kind of didn't think about it or foresee it, but the issue that we have at hand is that NVIDIA and their lovely power connectors are side mounted, just like so. And in this Lian Li O11 Dynamic, if you run the power connector just like so, yeah, we're not going to be able to close the side panel, and that's definitely not bueno. I mean, I'm pretty sure the customer doesn't want his computer exposed like that. Might get better airflow, maybe a little more FPSs, but no bueno, and we got to fix it. Now, I am in a time crunch in the sense that I have to drive this computer 10.5 hours to Indiana from where I'm at. That was kind of one of the agreements, which is fine and dandy, makes for a cool little adventure. So I ran into some issues, so I decided that we're gonna have to vertically mount it, and I do apologize for the lighting. Let's see if this kind of helps or makes this thing worse. That might work. I ordered the vertical. I was looking for the vertical GPU mount, and of course you want to go with the Lian Li one, but it's kind of back ordered like 2 or 3 weeks, and I got to get this thing out of here probably in the next week or so. Did some research online, and Antec makes one that should work with this. So I ordered this from the Whole Jungle website. I think it was like $50 or $60, a little pricey. Let's open this up. Of course, everything is covered and sealed, but it has the PCIe Gen 4 riser cable, which is the biggest thing I was looking for. It is a lot cheaper than Lian Li, as the one I was looking at was like $80 to $100. So not that the price was an issue with this, but we're trying to see if this will work, get the job done, be just as good, if not better. So we're going to give it a shot. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the vertical mounts because depending on the case, it is a little too close to the glass or side panel, depending on what it is. And that's an issue because you don't want to choke this thing off, especially these cards. So I kind of try to stay away from that, but in this case, that's going to be our only option. The other option is to get a bigger, better case, but that's not an option, as number one, they really wanted this case, and number two, we are on a deadline for it. So we're going to try this. If it works, we'll run with it. If it doesn't work, then we might have to consider getting another case. But let's go ahead and get this monster graphics card out of here, which I can't reach that connector there to release the graphics card, so let's get something to help pop that out. I like to use a plastic piece because number one, if you slip, less chance of damaging the motherboard. Usually I have a flat one, but I can't find any of my stuff, so hopefully this works, and that should at least pop it out. Bingo. Now, typically the way these vertical mounts work is that you need a case where it's open like this, or you can mod it and cut it. So researching, this should work, as this case checks all the boxes. At least that's what it says on the internet. It's got to be true if it says it on the internet, right? So let's get all these out. All right, so let's open up the box, put the bracket together, and let's see if it works. So let's see what we got. And I do apologize for the lighting in here. This room was actually not designed for, well, I didn't make it for doing this type of stuff, but gotta adapt. We got screws, we got tools, bracketry, our cable, PCIe Gen 4. That is kind of important. And hopefully this is self-explanatory, so. Alright, so I think I got some better lighting, so kind of show this a lot better. So what I'm thinking is, took off this little rubber dampener, and I might just cut it a sliver just to kind of have a whole anti-vibration thing, just in case. But this is just sitting right over here, which is fine. It won't contact the fans. So far from what I'm seeing, I should have a decent amount of clearance right over here, so it won't be choked against the side panel. So this might work. So now we got to mount this cable, and from what I read from other people, mount this part first. Pop that in. Thinking I might have to mount the graphics card on this first. Had to walk away from that. So it's a few days later and I'm actually back in the garage. Been able to get the garage clean and back in my work area, which is good because there's better lighting, there's more room. Garage is still a bit of a disaster, but all that dust, residue, and all that stuff in the way that kept me from working here is gone. So now back to this project. So initially I was trying to mount this, putting it up on the top two brackets, primarily so I could get the fans in the bottom right over here, and that way I would have two more intake fans to take air from the bottom, kind of blow air up. But unfortunately ran into some issues. So one of the issue I had was right over here with the PCI Express riser cable. I guess it's too long, and probably maybe that's because it's the Antec version, not the Lian Li version. But when I did that, it put a lot of strain on the port right over here, which I was not a fan of. And because it was longer, it was actually flexing up and hitting this heatsink, which was causing the card to kind of hit forward. It wasn't sitting right, and I didn't like kind of how tight it was and didn't really want to force things. So I took off the two fans in the bottom, left this one over here, so at least we got one fan, and I was able to put it on the lowest mount of the slots right over here. Took off the little cushion. This is actually sitting on the case. It is sturdy and it fit perfectly. And by mounting it this way, my power connector or fire connector, however you want to look at it, fits perfectly. I was able to run all the cables right over here through the back like so. It looks clean, doesn't look too terrible. It's going up, kind of covering the memory, which is fine because it's not RGB, which is awesome, or kind of bad because we're losing frames per second. But everything works and everything's fitting fine, and I got plenty of clearance, very happy with it. Now another thing to note is that typically on these vertical mounts, they sit really close to the glass, but I actually have roughly about, let's just make math easy, 2.5 inches of clearance from the glass to over here, which is pretty good because I've actually had cases where I've mounted it this way, went back and not did it that way, and it's sitting right over there with just maybe 1/4 of an inch, which is not good and would choke this off. So I'm thinking with the gap that we have, we shouldn't have any choking of the graphics card, and we should be able to get good temps. So I have the case open right now, running pretty good. I've been running Heaven Benchmark for about 20 minutes just to get the card heat soaked, and with the case open we're at 50 degrees Celsius. So let's go ahead, let's put the side panel on, let this test run for another 20-30 minutes, and let's see what kind of temps we get. Do we have enough airflow? Do we have enough clearance? And is this going to be an issue? Alright, so about another hour of usage, and I went ahead and installed MSI Afterburner, primarily because it's a lot easier to see. Our GPU 56, the highest spike I saw was 58, so we only gained a couple of degrees by putting the panel on. We got plenty of airflow. The GPU is not getting choked off, primarily because it is not close to the glass like typical vertical mount, so I'm very happy with that. And the whole GPU power thing, I've seen this thing spike up to 350, 360, so that's a bit intense on that. So I'm definitely glad that this mount worked. I would have liked to use the Lee & Lee because, number one, it's a Lee & Lee case, and you probably would want to use a Lee & Lee adapter, especially the one specific for this. But they are on back order. They cost about $100, which price wasn't the issue because, you know, the customer did pay for everything. We did discuss the fact that we were going with a different brand on that. He was very cool with it. So this works. It gets the job done. It was $60 roughly, give or take. And the biggest thing is that it had the PCIe Gen 4 riser cable. The PCIe Gen 3 one for the Lee & Lee was the only one that was available. I could have gotten that in a day or two, but we need the PCIe Gen 4 one. So to wrap this up, if you have the Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic, the non-XL version, and you want to put a RTX 4090 graphics card in there, as they are massive, you're going to have to go to vertical GPU mount. The Antec one works fantastic. I'm happy with it. Maybe on the motherboard you might be able to mount it higher and get away with these two. I think the biggest issue is over here is the covering for the IO. As you can see right over here, the riser cable hits it, and if you raise it higher where you can put the fans in there, it kind of bulges and creates an issue with the graphics cards where it's kind of pushing out. It's not sitting comfortably, and I'm definitely don't like the idea of pressure being on anything for long periods of time. So this computer is going to get packed up. I'll be driving it to Indiana. I'll probably do a vlog video on that one, so stay tuned for that. So definitely comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, your concerns, the criticisms, information, suggestions, any that you think that would have been better. Maybe another vertical mount that would have worked better with this. If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.